Today we're going to be looking at the Emil 1951, the Tier 8 Premium Swedish Heavy Tank, which was released with the Frontline Game Mode, Episode 5. This is a vehicle which I'm pretty happy to have, and overall I prefer to the Emil 1. And there's one important reason why I prefer to the Emil 1, and that is this one stat here. This singular stat here is why I prefer this tank over the Emil 1. That part of weight ratio of nearly 15 makes a substantial difference to how mobile this tank feels. Even though the Emil 1 has a top speed of 50, its effective top speed is about 35 to 30. Or 30 to 35 is probably the better way to phrase that. So, that tank, the Emil 1, I hated it because it had the potential to go 50, but it was so infuriatingly slow because it just didn't feel necessary to make it as slow as it was. It really irritated the crap out of me driving that tank just because it just felt so cumbersome and slow. Even though it was such a small vehicle, it felt so slow and just irritating to drive. The Emil 1951 thankfully fixes that issue. However, you do have a couple of trade-offs to gain that part of weight ratio. First thing, you have less accuracy. Second thing, you have a longer overall clip reload. But you do get a couple of benefits like to help out with this like faster in-clip reload. The actual unload speed for the entire clip of this thing is about half a second faster, which is an advantage that you do have. And the aiming time is a bit faster than the Emil 1's as well. However, you also have to keep in mind that the Emil 1's unload time is slower, so it effectively means that both tanks are going to be fully aimed whenever they're going to fire their guns. But the Emil 1's always going to be more accurate than the Emil 1951, but during snapshots the Emil 1951 could be a little bit more accurate potentially. But both have the same alpha damage and same penetration. It's the part of weight ratio that is the main thing that counts for me. And I really do think this is like the main thing that helps this tank out the most. Having that part of weight ratio makes a substantial difference to how much fun this vehicle can be to play. And it's why the Emil 1 just aggravated the hell out of me whenever I was driving it. Now, you might be expecting this thing to be like a go-kart the way I'm describing it. It is not a go-kart. It's still not a very, very fast vehicle, but it's more like a slow medium now, rather than a slow heavy, which is something I really do like about this vehicle, because it doesn't need to be so slow. Like, it really, like, even though it has this incredible turret, the turret does have one substantial weakness which you do need to keep in mind at all times, and that is that if your turret's not pointing directly towards the enemy you're facing, then the turret effectively has no armor. This is something which took me a while to figure out for the Swedish heavies, but the Swedish heavies can only point their turrets in one direction. Well, you might be thinking, well, no shit. But they're invulnerable to the direction they're invulnerable to getting hit from the direction where their gun is pointing. But if their gun's pointing one direction, that means from another direction they're vulnerable. That's probably the best way I could phrase that. And it's a really important thing to keep in mind when you're driving this vehicle. Just like how vulnerable this tank is whenever you're over-angling the turret or something like that. Also, you might be noticing here, I am going to snap some shots off. Wow, that's an aggressive M40. You have to keep in mind whenever you're driving this vehicle, like always try and point your turret towards the vehicle which is going to be firing at you. Because if you don't, then you're going to get pain, you're going to take damage. And even in some cases like that, you're going to take damage anyway, because some vehicles just have enough penetration to go through you. And I actually didn't see where that guy pinned me. I think he may have pinned me in the lower front plate, potentially. Oh, actually, wait. Looks like somebody may have pinned me on the front of the turret. Although that could potentially be the arm model. Or not the arm model, the visual model. It can be difficult to tell sometimes, because there are some vehicles nowadays which do have little like chips in the armor to look as if they've been through a battle already, and it can make it a little bit difficult sometimes to tell which was actually a shot from the game and which is just part of the armor model, or not the armor model, the visual model. So let's see, that standard B is a tank that's really worrying me now actually, because I've just noticed that guy survived the fight with the tank he was fighting earlier. Let's try and unload some shots on this guy. Nice, managed to finish that guy off. That's a useful kill to have. That's a tier 8 medium removed from the fight. So you can see there, that's where the unload speed on this tank does come in handy. But you did also see another weakness this tank does kind of have. That Oni hitting me with a HE round did like 300 damage. HE rounds hurt this tank a lot. You need to be incredibly cautious around vehicles which have dart guns. I was being kind of ballsy there because I did have the health to take the hit. But if you get hit with a HE round in this tank, it hurts a lot. It is something you need to be incredibly aware of. And artillery is the bane of your existence when you're driving this vehicle. Because if you're too aggressive, and that's really distracting, god damn it. So artillery is the bane of your existence. You have to be incredibly careful when it comes to dealing with them, because if you're not, then you're just going to get absolutely creamed. And artillery, it makes sense for artillery to go for you as well. It's not as if they're just going for you just for the crack. Or well, that's probably not a good way to like phrase that there, because that's a term people wouldn't really know outside of where I'm from. It's not as if artillery is just going for you just for the fun of it. It makes sense for them to go for you. Because if you're in a strong position and you're not giving the enemy team anything to shoot at, and you're not giving them any weaknesses to exploit, then it makes 100% sense for the artillery to focus on you and try and get rid of you, because you're a massive threat to the enemy team winning. Because it can be incredibly difficult to actually deal with a Swedish heavy tank in a good position. That's one thing that people can't forget about when it comes to these vehicles sometimes. They can be incredibly influential in games. See, there is a Tiger P. Let's try and move some shots into this guy. Damn it, tried to go for his track, missed it. Gonna be kind of careful here though, try and stay behind this rock and avoid getting shot from the side by the SU-152 that was spotted back there. Would like to kill the Oni though. The Oni is going to be a pain. Oh, never mind, he's dead already, that's useful. Try and be careful here because I don't want to be too ballsy and get myself killed. That would suck. No visual on the lava. Must be pretty off, or well, he must be off in the background there behind a building. Oh shit! Oh, I didn't even realize like I was in my own wee world there. Didn't even notice like I was behind me. Let's try and unload on this guy and finish him off. Nice. That is where this tank's unload speed comes in so much more handy than the Emil ones. It's such an incredibly useful ability this thing has. Now, there was a decent chance I could have missed those shots. I'm not going to deny that. But you can see, like, whenever this tank's gun accuracy holds up, it can be incredibly devastating for vehicles to come up against. Oh, balls, they actually spotted me. Let's try and unload some shots into the C-50. Trying to pick away that E-50's health is going to be important here, because he is going to be a pain to deal with a bit later, because he has still got some pretty strong armor, and we actually don't know what gun he's using at the moment. I didn't see him fire or anything there, but his gun was kind of in the air there. I am still very, very aware of the SU-152 in the background. That is honestly the main vehicle which I'm kind of worried about right now, because that vehicle is, as I mentioned earlier, a massive threat if he's using the 152mm gun. E-50 was spotted again there. Hopefully artillery or something will be able to get shots to him. And the SU-152 gets spotted, I will immediately focus on that guy and try and kill him off as quickly as possible. Also, they have a Challenger that hasn't been spotted yet in this game, I've just noticed. I was trying to think, I was thinking, like, looking at the map there, there's a couple of vehicles that have not been spotted there, isn't there? And the WoT Emil hasn't been spotted in a while as well. So let's see, Skoda, E-50, ISU, oh, the ISU-152 hasn't been spotted as well. Okay, right, so that's a thing I'm going to have to keep in the back of my mind there. So they've actually got two very, very powerful vehicles which have not been spotted yet. It feels kind of weird to say the Challenger is a powerful vehicle, but it is these days. that gun that it has, the 32 pounder, is very dangerous. I'm not gonna be able to hit this guy, am I? Nope. Gun trolled me, and ISU is spotted. Come on, please, please, somebody focus on him. Come on, kill him. I've tried to be ballsy there, tried to go for shots on the SU. My shots against the SU did not go where I needed them to go. However, thankfully, the ISU fired his gun. He was using HE, which meant he didn't actually kill me. Oh well, I wouldn't have died anyway, but he was using HE, and thankfully he didn't hit my like roof armor or something like that and do a metric ton of damage. Because it's entirely possible. I have seen 1.2mm guns do like 500 damage in a single hit. I think it might be a good idea now to potentially rush this E50 and try and get rid of him. One thing is though, I'm not sure if I can actually make it down this here. Let me see. That's the E50 dealt with, and there is the Challenger. Skoda's going to be a big threat there as well. Although it does kind of depend on which gun he is using at the moment. That was a bit of a risky move that I made there against the E50, but I figured catching him out and taking one hit from him was a better option. And he was actually using the 105mm, which is interesting to see. These days that's not a particularly common option on that tank anymore. But thankfully we won that game, 4100 damage. That was pretty much the perfect map for this tank though, I will admit. Situations like that aren't going to be the most frequent, but that map really does show you like what this thing can do in the situation where it's able to go hold down and avoid like getting shot in the side of the turret effectively. And you can see there that I think people are doing pretty well in this tank, because you can see here that was like a 1300 XP game. I have a feeling that would be a decent XP game, and that's only a second class. I could have did more damage in that game. I'm not going to argue against that there. Like, I could have done more damage in that game. I easily could have did potentially over 4500 damage in that game if I hadn't just blasted all my shots away at the SU-152. However, that was a pretty decent game, pretty decent like showcase of what this thing can do, and that moment against the Tiger P really showed off like how the onward speed can be useful, because like I have a feeling like I probably would have fallen back behind cover if I had had that like extra. I think it's only like 0.25 between shots, but that 0.25 could have been enough for that guy to potentially potentially fall back behind a rock. So I'm pretty happy with the way that went there. I'm actually just looking there. Apparently I've got something for a custom style decal. Oh right, I'll knock some decals for something there. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, I definitely prefer this vehicle over the Emil 1, 100%. And I do think this vehicle would be useful to have. However, I wouldn't tell anybody who doesn't like the frontline game mode to play the frontline game mode to only get this vehicle, because you're probably going to feel like this tank isn't worth getting if you didn't like the frontline game mode. Now, I like the frontline game mode, I enjoy playing it, which is why I don't really mind investing the time into it in order to get vehicles like this. And I do intend to go for the AE Phase 1, I think it's called as well, which would be the Tier 9 vehicle for the frontline game mode as well, because I just think that thing would be cool to have. Because it would just be like a cool like reward for like the time stuff that you put into the mode. And you do have enough of the prestige points, or whatever they're called. Oh yeah, prestige points, that's actually exactly what they're called, to get the Tier 9 and the Emil 1951 if you're looking to get both of those vehicles. So yeah. So let me know in the comments, like, how many people have you seen driving around the Emil 1951, and do you have one yourself, and are you disappointed with the vehicle, or are you happy that you got this vehicle as like a reward for putting the time into the mode?